Greetings everyone, welcome to Chess Advanced, and we are again covering games from the 2018 Tal Memorial. Here with the white pieces, we have Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. He was one of the strongest players at the time. At the 2018, I think he was somewhere around 2800. He reached 2830 ELO. I think he became, the fifth person to do so. Not fifth, I think the fourth person to do so. But yeah, in his time, he was absolutely crushing everyone and playing spectacular chess. And with the black pieces, we have Daniil Dubov, an excellent, fantastic player. I mean, some of his sacrifices are really like Tal, and let's see what he's able to conjure in the Tal Memorial. So without further ado, let's start with this game. Here Shakhriyar starts with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, c5, and just e3. g6, knight to c3, bishop to g7, d5, and Shakhriyar is immediately from the beginning. Mamedyarov is just going for it and just taking all the space in the center. We have castles, knight to f3 at just d6. Now this is basically the King's Indian defense, and as you can see from the structure and the castles and the fianchetto, so all of this is very much similar to this. And now just bishop to e2, just preparing castles. We have e6, just challenging the central pawn, as is the idea in the King's Indian. We have e4 now, but just knight to a6, just developing it and taking the knight there, and we'll see where the knight goes from there. We have castles, knight to c7, rook to e1, and just rook to e8. So both rooks are now facing each other, and there is some tension in the center, but it's not too much to be worried about. But again, Shakhriyar has gotten actually a very nice position right from the center, right from the beginning, and now he goes for it. He goes for e5. He goes and tries to create chances, and definitely this is the way to do so. You cannot even capture this here. Just d captures was played by Daniil, but here just d6, and now you understand why you could not capture it, because knight to a6 back, but now just comes this knight to e5. And just to even show you how rich this position is, knight to d7 was played in this position, but you can even go for a very beautiful line here in this position with going for knight to g4. And the trouble is, you cannot kick the knight away with a move like f5, because if you go for f5, then just comes knight to h6 check, king needs to move, and I can even go for a beautiful idea in this position by going for this knight to d5, sacrificing the knight, and this knight cannot be taken. If you go for this captures, then just queen captures, and yes, I'm threatening checkmate two ways. There is no way to do anything. The best you can do is just maybe get the rook into the game, but after this, even if you try to exchange queens, this would be checkmate. So this would be a very terrible way to go, with the pawn covering this and the queens delivering the checkmate, where the knight is protecting the queen. And this is absolutely amazing thing. If it would have happened on the board, obviously it didn't, because after knight to d7 we have knight captures, and knight captures loses all your advantage. I mean, knight to g4 is a much stronger move that you have to consider. I don't know why he didn't consider this, because it just seems very natural. But again, you cannot see everything. I mean, you cannot just spot and calculate all the things. Maybe he had something prepared. But here, after this bishop captures, we have bishop to f3, but just queen to b6. And queen to b6, with the idea if the bishop ever moves, I'm going to capture it. I already have, a lot of pressure along that diagonal. Rook to e2 was played now, just defending against everything, and now just h6, not allowing the bishop to jump. Bishop to f4, and now we have this rook to a to d8, queen to d2, king to h7, and just bishop to e5. So if you are able to trade the bishop, the King's Indian bishop, or the fianchetto bishop, or even if you want to say it, the dragon bishop, or whatever you want to call it, here just f6, not allowing, because once you trade this, your king becomes very weak, and you have to understand that then all the trouble starts to happen. But here after bishop to g3, e5, now just going immediately for that center. We have rook to d1, knight to b8, and now bishop to d5 was played, just taking control of everything. This pass pawn is absolutely amazing. You cannot even capture this, because a move like that would just immediately pick up your queen. So you have to be very careful. Mamedyarov is setting up tricks, and you don't want to fall for such tricks. But here just bishop to e6 was played, and bishop to e6 is not a good move. The idea is you can actually go and capture this. Bishop captures, and if you are not that careful and you try to blunder in this position, let's say you play rook captures, that is the only move. But now comes knight to e4, just defending that pawn and keeping the tension still alive, because what do you do in this position? If you try to even kick away the knight, even that's not possible. If you go for f5, the problem is your troubles just keeps on mounting, because just queen to d5, and now I'm entering in the position. You cannot even capture, you cannot capture. Everything is defended by the knight, by the queen, and there is nothing you can do. Even if you go for rook d2 e8, just trying to double up, now just comes this beautiful knight captures on c5. Now your rook is under attack. What do you do? Where do you put the rook? If you go rook to f6, then just d7, and now this is coming. If you just go here, the position just completely crumbles, because there are so many ways I can just make your life a living hell here. And yeah, this is not at all looking good, and your position is just going to crumble here. I mean, the advantage there, it's showing by Stockfish is +6, so you can understand that it's just completely collapsible. And here, but after bishop to e6, f4 was played by Mamedyarov, and f4 is unfortunately not a good move, because now queen caps on d6 can be played, and now f captures, pawn captures, and now just going for this bishop to h4, which seems like a good idea. And Mamedyarov had advantage throughout his game. He had this advantage throughout this game, and he could have pushed hard enough, but he did not. And now Dubov is definitely, once he takes charge, I mean, it's very difficult to stop Dubov. Here, rook to d7 was played, but now just knight to e4, attacking the queen, queen to b6, and rook to f1. So he's trying to just shift the momentum towards the king side, and in midst, when you have the momentum in the center, I think you should have pushed in the center. But now shifting the attack towards the king side, it's just going to be a little bit difficult, because hey, bishop to f5, but now there's a very nice move. I mean, you can understand that you cannot capture, obviously, because your queen would be hanging. So here a move like knight to g3 does make sense. G5, on the other hand, just completely blunders the game. If you're thinking why it does so, because now there is nothing in this position that I can do, or other than that, other than this move. So after this and queen captures, you can understand the position is very, very nasty, because now I can just get the knight here. There is some mate threats. The rook is already eyeing this. Maybe I can just push the rook here as well after capturing. Once the bishop moves, the position is looking absolutely amazing, and you cannot even go here. If you go here, then the knight jumps in either here or here, and then the rook, I mean, the rook comes in. It's just a very, very bad position to have. And after queen to d3 here, none of this was played. I mean, after bishop to f5, queen to d3 was tried, but queen to d3, you can understand that why are you putting your queen under the mask of the bishop, and that's something that you should not do. A rook to f8 was tried, but now just rook e to f2, and yeah, unfortunately Dubov has taken charge, and it's going to be very difficult to stop him. Here knight to a6 was tried, getting the knight into the game. Knight was still on the b8 square, and it's moved to 29, and still if Dubov manages to win from here, that would be an absolute miracle, because here g4 was played, and Shakhriyar is still trying to push the game towards a win. He does not have the momentum now, but if he keeps on pushing like this, the game is going to collapse in on itself, and it's going to be very difficult to stop this. Here knight to b4 was tried, attacking the queen, queen to g3, and just knight captures on d5. And now once you lose the central knight, it's going to central bishop, it's just going to be very much difficult, because you've lost all your advantage. So here g captures on f5, try to mix it up, but just knight to f4 was played, and yeah, he's playing it spectacularly, Dubov, and it's just very difficult to do anything here. F captures on g6 was tried, but just queen captures, king captures. The position is not at all good, looking good for Shakhriyar. King to h7 was played, but now just p6, p3. I mean, the structure is similar, but when you look at the king side, you can understand these pieces against these pieces. I mean, it's anyone's game, but anyone who is better here is definitely black, because he has an extra pawn, and that's a central pawn, that's an outside pass pawn. So it's going to be very, very difficult to stop that pass pawn. Here rook to d4, but just knight to c3, rook to d3, and just knight to e4. Just both players repeating moves, maybe just gaining some time on the clock. King to f5 was played, but just rook to e1, and now we have rook to f7. So you have to play it very, very precisely. If you make even a single blunder, you lose all your advantage. And yeah, once the thing is that Shakhriyar is 2800, he's not someone who you're supposed to be taken lightly, and once you do a mistake, he will capitalize on it. So here bishop to g3 was played, but rook f to d7, and now just rook f to f1. Now you can see that Shakhriyar, in the position, he was just pushing and going for an attack. Now he's all defensive, and you can see all of these pieces. You know, once all of these pieces are that constricted, the position is going for a very, very bad rough patch. Rook 7 to d4 was played, but now just bishop captures, e captures, and just knight to g3 check. But here just king to g5, knight to e4 check, hoping for a perpetual, but just there is going to be no perpetual. King to f5, knight to g3, king to g4 now, and knight to e2. So how do you defend that pawn? Well, you don't. Here just rook to e4, and now if you're able to capture, then just captures, and you lose the piece. Here rook to g1 was tried, but king to h4, but just knight captures on f4 was played, but just rook captures, and rook to f2 was played. And yeah, this position is very, very difficult to play, and now it's a draw, but you have to be very, very careful. Here king to g1 was played, but after rook captures on a2, king to g1 just completely blunders the game for Daniil, because now once I'm able to eliminate a few just base of the pawn chain, you can understand those two pawns are going to fall as well. A rook to f1 was tried, but just rook caps on b3, and yeah, Daniil knew, he understood, he made this blunder, and it was on this move, on just move 51, just 2 moves after making the blunder, that he resigned the game. And yeah, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov got this spectacular victory against Daniil Dubov. He is, I mean, if if I'm able to put it in words, then I think he is the person who loves to play like Tal, and getting a win against him like this is just absolutely spectacular, and just shows how strong Shakhriyar Mamedyarov was in his time. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back to games like these, so stay tuned, stay updated, and yes, I'll be seeing you guys very, very soon. Thank you all for watching.